Picture this, a stormy November morning in 1980. A brilliant but eccentric mechanic leaves behind a cryptic note about meeting aliens, along with his entire life savings. Then, he vanishes without a trace. Was it an elaborate hoax? A tragic end? Or did he actually make contact? Oh, hey there, true crime addicts. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button and join our community of mystery solvers. Trust me, you won't want to miss this absolutely mind-bending case. In the quaint town of Duncan, British Columbia, lived a mechanical genius named Granger Taylor. And when I say genius, I mean the kind of person who could build a functioning steam locomotive at age 14. Yeah, you heard that right. While most of us were struggling with algebra homework, this guy was casually reconstructing steam engines. But Granger wasn't your typical small-town prodigy. Behind his incredible mechanical abilities lay a mind increasingly obsessed with one thing: extraterrestrial life. Before we dive deeper into this cosmic rabbit hole, do me a quick favor and hit that like button if you've ever looked up at the stars and wondered if we're alone in the universe. Because Granger, well, he was convinced we weren't. By 1980, Granger had transformed his parents' property into what locals called an alien museum. At its centerpiece sat a massive UFO-shaped structure he'd built from scratch, a shelter where he'd spend countless hours studying UFO phenomena and, supposedly, communicating with extraterrestrial beings. Now, here's where things get really weird, folks. And if you're enjoying this story so far, consider subscribing. Because trust me, it only gets more bizarre from here. On November 29, 1980, during one of the worst storms the island had seen that year, Granger walked into his parents' house and handed his stepfather a note. The contents of this note would baffle investigators for decades to come. I have gone away to walk aboard an alien ship, as recurring dreams assured a 42-month interstellar voyage to explore the vast universe, then return. I am leaving behind all my possessions to you, as I will no longer require them. Along with this note, he left a map of his bank account showing $10,000 in savings, his entire life's wealth. But here's the kicker. Granger didn't just disappear into thin air. He got into his blue Datsun pickup truck and drove away. Into one of the worst storms Vancouver Island had seen that year. The kind of storm that would make most people stay indoors, wrapped in a blanket with a hot cup of cocoa. If you're as invested in this story as I am, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Because in part 2, we're going to explore the absolutely wild theories about what happened to Granger Taylor, including some evidence that wasn't discovered until years later. What makes this case particularly fascinating is that Granger wasn't some random UFO enthusiast. He was a certified genius who could understand complex mechanical systems better than most engineers. So when he claimed he was communicating with aliens, well, it makes you wonder. I mean, this is a guy who built a functioning aircraft from spare parts just for fun. If anyone could figure out how to contact aliens, maybe it would be the person who treats a jet engine like a Lego set, right? Speaking of evidence, the weather conditions that night were truly terrifying. Winds reached speeds of up to 100 miles per hour, and visibility was practically zero. Perfect conditions for, well, something to happen without witnesses. If this case is blowing your mind as much as it's blowing mine, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps support the channel, and lets me know you want more mind-bending mysteries like this one. Granger Taylor had just driven into one of the worst storms in Vancouver Island's history, leaving behind a cryptic note about boarding an alien spacecraft. But what happened next would leave investigators scratching their heads for decades. The initial search for Granger was, well, let's just say it was complicated. Imagine trying to find a blue pickup truck in a massive forest during a storm so bad it could knock over trees. Talk about looking for a needle in a haystack. During a tornado, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police launched an extensive search operation. They combed through the dense forests of Vancouver Island, checked every road, and even investigated potential sightings in neighboring communities. But Granger and his Datsun truck had seemingly vanished into thin air. And before we dive deeper into this cosmic mystery, if you're enjoying this extraterrestrial adventure, smash that like button harder than Granger could smash together a working airplane engine. Now, here's where things get really interesting. For years, the case remained cold. Some locals believed Granger had simply started a new life somewhere else. Others were convinced he had met with foul play. And then there were those who genuinely believed he had made contact with extraterrestrial beings. But in 1986, nearly 6 years after Granger's disappearance, forestry workers made a shocking discovery near Mount Prevost. They found fragments of what appeared to be a Truxwell well, along with some human bone fragments. The location was close to a blast site marked on the map Granger had left behind. And if you're thinking this case couldn't get any stranger, buckle up, because we're about to explore some theories that will make your head spin. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more mind-bending mysteries like this one. The forensic investigation of the site revealed something peculiar. The blast pattern suggested an explosion of significant force. Now, remember how I mentioned Granger's mechanical genius? Well, he had been experimenting with something rather dangerous before his disappearance: large amounts of dynamite. According to Bob Nielsen, a close friend of Granger's, he had been collecting blasting caps and dynamite for months before he vanished. When asked why, Granger had cryptically responded that he needed the explosion for takeoff. The bone fragments found at the site were eventually confirmed through DNA testing to belong to Granger Taylor. But here's the twist. The explosion that scattered these remains was estimated to be much larger than what would have been caused by a simple vehicle crash or even several sticks of dynamite. If you're still with me, give this video a thumbs up, because we're about to explore some theories that will challenge everything you think you know about this case. Some investigators believe Granger, in his deteriorating mental state, might have orchestrated his own disappearance, ending in a tragic explosion. Others suggest he might have been experimenting with his alien communication theories, and something went terribly wrong. But here's what fascinates me about this case: Granger's absolute conviction. This wasn't some random UFO enthusiast. This was a mechanical genius who understood complex systems better than most engineers. When he talked about alien communication, he spoke with the same precision he used when rebuilding jet engines. The late 1970s and early 1980s saw a surge in UFO interest, especially in the Pacific Northwest. Granger's disappearance occurred during a time when hundreds of UFO sightings were being reported in the region. Coincidence? Maybe, but it adds another layer to this already complex mystery. The people of Duncan, British Columbia, never quite got over Granger's disappearance. His homemade UFO shelter stood as a testament to his eccentric genius for years afterward. Local kids would whisper stories about the mechanical wizard who went to live among the stars. Before we wrap up this cosmic mystery, if you've enjoyed this journey through one of Canada's most bizarre cold cases, make sure you're subscribed and have that notification bell ringing louder than one of Granger's steam engines. Today, Granger Taylor's story serves as a reminder of how thin the line can be between genius and obsession. His mechanical achievements, the rebuilt aircraft, the steam locomotive, the perfectly reconstructed engines, all stand as testament to his brilliant mind. Recent years have seen renewed interest in Granger's case, particularly with the government's acknowledgement of UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, sightings. While this doesn't validate any particular theory about his disappearance, it does add an interesting contemporary lens to his story. The blast site on Mount Prevost has become something of a pilgrimage spot for both true crime enthusiasts and UFO researchers. The remaining pieces of his mechanical projects are preserved in local collections, remembered as the work of an undisputed genius. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of this case is the question of whether Granger found what he was looking for. His stepfather would later recall that in the weeks before his disappearance, Granger had seemed more peaceful, more certain than ever before. We may never know exactly what happened on that stormy November night in 1980. But one thing's for certain: the story of Granger Taylor, the mechanical genius who dreamed of the stars, will continue to captivate imaginations for generations to come. And that brings us to the end of this cosmic mystery. If you've made it this far, you're officially part of our true crime family. Don't forget to leave a comment with your theories about what really happened to Granger Taylor. Did he make contact? Was it a tragic accident? Or is there another explanation we haven't considered? Until next time, keep looking up at the stars. But maybe think twice before accepting any intergalactic invitations. Stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next mystery.